Hi, it's Carol Roth for Goldline. Today I'm going to talk about debt downgrades and the U.S.'s runaway fiscal train. Back in the summer of 2011, an unprecedented, ugly economic event came to pass. The sovereign debt of the United States received an official credit downgrade from Standard & Poor's. They cut the debt rating from the creme de la creme AAA rating down to AA+ on the back of concerns over growing debt and deficits. Now, who was the vice president when this historic credit downgrade came about? Well, none other than our current president, Joe Biden himself. You would think that stern and unprecedented warning would have been a learning moment. At the time, the U.S. public debt stood at around 95% of GDP and was less than $15 trillion in the aggregate. If the U.S.'s fiscal standing was a concern then, Biden might realize the dire situation the U.S. is in today, with public debt now sitting at around 125% of GDP and rapidly approaching $32 trillion in total. Deficits at the time, coming out of the Great Recession financial crisis, were also around $1.3 trillion. Despite having revenue, that is mostly your taxes, clocking in at between $4 and $5 trillion over the past couple of years versus the $2.3 trillion or so in fiscal year 2011, the government is still running massive deficits. Now Biden and his administration, as well as the Democrats in Congress, want to spend even more, something that is unsustainable and should give you an urgent reason to protect your wealth, including considering hedges such as gold and silver. Government spending, which is completely out of control, is by the government's own projections entirely non-sustainable. And neither party has a real plan to meaningfully roll back spending. Not to mention that this expansion is happening at a time when the Fed is trying to cool the economy to address high inflation, and this robust government spending is working in the opposite direction. While there's been a ton of political theater, there hasn't been nearly enough concern over the mid to long-term fiscal health of the United States and the impact on our money, purchasing power, and global financial standing. Interest on the U.S. debt is approaching the level of spending on national defense. That is, based on CBO estimates, more than $660 billion and growing of your and other Americans' money each year that's going to pay the financing costs on things we already bought and not getting anything new for it. The U.S. Treasury has even bluntly said that we are on, quote, an unsustainable fiscal path. On top of that, the CBO projects net interest payments over the next 30 years will total more than, get this one, $60 trillion. That's almost 3 times our current GDP. And it doesn't even take into account the more than $100 trillion in estimated liabilities and promises that the government has made. This is a runaway fiscal train. If the train keeps barreling down the tracks, either there is a long-term debt default and a global financial reset, or dollars are debased significantly and it will kill your purchasing power. Or perhaps both. These outcomes aren't good for your wealth or for the future of the United States of America. It's way past time to learn the lesson that President Biden should have learned back in 2011. If the U.S. spending just went back to pre-COVID levels, it would be a huge step in the right direction. Spending at 2019 or even 2018 levels would give the United States a surplus and let us start paying down some debt. That $4.1 to $4.4 trillion spending target's still obscene, but it would be a welcome action before our financial foundation is ruined forever. Joe Biden and Congress can start down this path, but much more needs to be done. The projections for government spending are a clear signal that you need to protect your wealth. That can include physical gold and other precious metals. Now, if you haven't had an opportunity to hedge your own portfolio, or maybe you haven't hedged enough, consider giving my friends at Goldline a call to help you. And don't wait on this. As time goes on, the situation is projected to get worse, not better. If you call Goldline at 800-319-9533 or visit goldline.com, they have a special offer for their Betsy Ross Freedom Round, which was designed by me and is exclusively available through Goldline. With a qualified purchase, get 1 copper Betsy Ross Freedom Round for free with every silver one you purchase. That's 800-319-9533 or goldline.com. Joe Biden already oversaw one debt downgrade. Ignoring that and the warnings coming from the Treasury, the CBO, and elsewhere is purely and deliberately destructive. I'm Carol Roth for Goldline. I'll see you next time. The views and opinions expressed in this video are those of Carol Roth and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Goldline or its parent company or affiliates. These views and opinions may have been previously disseminated in other media.